Hey everybody, and welcome to the Photogs channel, or welcome back to the Photogs channel. I just wanted to do a real quick little video because I'm going through a dilemma. And it's funny, I think all of us have gone through this, and I know I touched on it in some of my comments on a couple other channels lately. And there was this one gentleman, I forget his name, but he was talking about his dilemma between two camera systems and, wanting to switch from one to the other. And usually that's not something I do or am interested in doing frequently because it's too expensive. Once you've made an investment in lenses and equipment, it's really kind of a good idea to stay there. So I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite and kind of talk this out with you guys. Just because, I don't know, maybe you've gone through the same thing in your mind, and how you come to that decision is sometimes a tough one. So, quick background. Back in when I owned my camera store and did the wedding and portrait photographers photography full-time, I used lots of camera systems. But the most recent, when it comes to digital, was Canon. So I used Canon DSLRs. I used like the 5Ds, and I went from the 5D Mark I, the first one, the second one, and I think the third one was the last one I owned. But at that time, then I switched to Sony because same thing. They were smaller, they were lighter than all my great big Canon gear. So this is my Sony gear right here. This is when I traded in and gave up my Canon gear. This is essentially what I traded it in for on this side. This is the Sony. Now, obviously, some of the things I acquired through the years, I didn't buy it all at once. But, so with my Sony, which, excuse me, this is an A7R3. So it's over 40 megapixels, great image quality. It suits my needs terrific. But in my tinkering around with photography, I started using the Lumix cameras. And I started with the camera I'm actually recording this with right now, which is the G9, the original G9. And I originally was just going to be, do the Sony stuff and kind of go from there, just leave it there. And then the Lumix I was going to use as my video system for doing YouTube stuff from time to time. The thing is, after using the Lumixes for video, I saw the power in them and went, wow, I like these cameras a lot. So I started using them in the field towards my personal photography and the occasional portrait. So not, it was one of those things, but when I started using the Lumix, I realized how much I like these cameras. I like the menu systems better. I like the button placement better. And honestly, I've always been a sucker for Leica lenses. Well, I've always been a sucker for really fine optics. Typically, my lenses I use the most for the Sonys are right here. And maybe you notice, maybe you can't. All those are Zeiss. Because same thing, prior to all this, I always use Zeiss optics. I use them on my Contax 35mm cameras. Obviously, I use them on my Hasselblads. And I still own a lot of that Zeiss glass for the Contax and my Hasselblad stuff. I've always loved Zeiss. Are they, in some cases when it comes to the G-Master lenses, are they sharper and clearer? Not necessarily. A lot of the G-Master lenses actually beat some of the Zeiss with sharpness. But I like the construction. I like the look I get. The color and the tones I think are they're a little more subtle in some ways. It's hard to explain, but I've always just had this thing for the Zeiss lenses. And maybe the only difference between the Zeiss is the 6 inches between my ears is possible, but I've always had a thing for them. Maybe it's brand loyalty. Well, in using the Lumix, in using the Leica lenses, the Panasonic Leica optics. So they're built by Panasonic, but under Leica specifications. But you know what? Same thing. I've come to love these Leica lenses, and how they portray light and color and tone is very nice. It's very subtle, but there is a difference. Now, same thing. Maybe it's just a 6 inches between my ears kind of a thing, because a lot of people have inferred that, well, the Leica, it's all about the name. Maybe it is a little bit. Maybe there is a little bit of ego going in there of, I like using Leica lenses because of what they are and the history of it. So that very well may be the case. But here's where I'm stuck. I've got a great Sony system that is wonderful and great optics, no question. Great camera system, high megapixel. But then I've got the Lumix G9 II. I mean, it's a lot less megapixel. It's 25 megapixel. At the same time, I like the camera better. I like the way it operates. I like the way it focuses. I like the burst rates I can accomplish on this camera. I love the lenses because, as you can see, the difference in this side of the desk, I have everything from 16 millimeter to the big guy here, which now I forget, 600 millimeter. So great lens set. And I've got, of course, my typicals. I've got a 50 millimeter 1.8. I've got an 85 millimeter 1.8, which I love, the Batis, this is one of my favorite lenses of all time. At the same time, now I've been using this Leica 42.5 for the Leica, or for the, pardon me, for the Lumix, and I like it just as much. So what in the world do I do? Could I keep both systems? Sure. I could keep both systems and just, I run with both. But you know what? The Sonys, I don't use them anymore. They just sit in my closet gathering dust. So I don't know. Should I just hold on to them? Should I try and sell them and invest more in the Lumix? I don't know. This is driving me crazy. And I know some of you may be in the same situation as far as what to buy, or maybe you have these systems too and you're evaluating this. But this is really bugging me because same thing. Right here I have the same range as this. The only thing I lack for my Lumix is I haven't bought a 50 millimeter lens because I usually like a 50. But honestly, like in this setup, that's my least used lens. I like to have a 50. Do I use it much? I really don't. So I kind of thought to forego it here with my Lumix. But same thing. I've got from 16 millimeter to 600 millimeter. Here, I've got from 8 millimeter to 400 millimeter, which in 35 millimeter terms, yeah, that's pretty much even more powerful because it goes from 16 millimeter in equivalent focal range to 800 millimeters as far as the telephoto. So actually, this is even more powerful than this thing. Now, granted, the sensor sizes change a few things, like how f-stop works. Because this is a smaller sensor, these lenses are more wide angle. That's how the optics are developed. So therefore, you have greater depth of field. So let's say using f2.8 on these lenses is going to be a lot less shallow depth of field. So you're going to have a more shallow depth of field with this at 2.8 than you would at this with 2.8. But same thing. Other than those little tiny finicky things, I like the Lumix better. But if this was your situation and you were in this dilemma, what choices would you make? Now, for me, it's a matter of, okay, if I need maximum megapixel, okay, I've got over 40 megapixel here. This is 25. At the same time, I've got high res mode. I can shoot it at 100 megapixel? Yeah, I think it's 100 on this one. Please don't quote me on that. I may be wrong. But you have the high-res mode on this, so you can do it in certain situations. But this is tough. It's like, okay, it's like a cat trying to decide which mouse to catch. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think. If this was your situation, or if you were in this situation, how do you evaluate it? How do you choose one over the other? Anyway, I hope this helps a little bit. It might not at all. It might make you be more confused. Who knows? But here we go. Have a great day, guys. Bye.